it's weird though, because these little people are so what's the word? They mirror us.
Yeah.
They're so wise.
Yeah.
And my son yesterday, I'm always like, I need to film this. I just had a really long week, and he just said to me, "Mommy, you're a good mommy."
Man.
I said, "Am I, baby?"
Oh man.
He said, "Yes, and you're so beautiful." I wanted to cry.
Yeah.
I wanted to cry.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that it is a two-way street, but now
It
that
really
part of
is.
me is like, oh my gosh, now he thinks he has to tell me I'm beautiful. Oh my gosh.
But you
he's
know
carrying
what?
the world on his shoulders at 3.
You know what? I think our children are emotionally intelligent more than we recognize.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna keep referring to yesterday because there were so many questions and
Yes.
nuggets, and I said it's so important to allow ourselves to be a mess in front of our children, because that teaches them that when they're older, they can be vulnerable. They can, in fact, even as kids, they're able to say, "Mommy, I can't do it." Whereas if you're constantly strong, constantly ticking the boxes,
They don't know
they
they're
don't have
allowed.
the space. Yeah, they don't know if they're allowed to be a mess, to be weak. So even in that, when my kid comes to me and say, "Mommy, you're amazing," I always say, "I appreciate that. Mommy really, really needed that."
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.
The upside of failure. We've got Mpoomy Ledwaba in the building. She is a wellness influencer, a digital entrepreneur, speaker, an award-winning podcaster, and most recently an author. Welcome to it.
Jeez, that sounds so hectic. Thank you so much.
You're a multi-hyphenated girl.
What? Thank you
You're
so
a
much.
slasher.
Yo, I'm so excited. I absolutely love your show. I
Thank
love
you.
your work. So this is like a pinch me moment.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. I mean, I really feel like we have been watching your work and I personally for like quite a while, and just admiring how you are creating your own template. You're not really trying to follow other people's templates. You're doing your own thing and navigating it. We not so long ago got to have a conversation with hubby.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Brendan Praise.
That's
and
my man.
Yeah, that's my man,
my
girl.
man.
my man,
My man.
right? And I absolutely loved that conversation, but I love some of the content that I see the two of you do and your realness. I'll tell you a specific video I remember watching is when you were speaking about your dream house and how you were, you had this dream house in mind, but you couldn't
Yeah.
afford it.
Yeah.
But you still ended up getting your dream house because the
Correct.
stars aligned.
Aligned, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I'm so glad they shared that, because so many people don't share the hard side. They just see the keys and house
The highlights.
part.
The highlights.
And somebody was saying to me not so long ago, they were like, "Oh, I saw this article about you doing the SAFTAs. Why are they telling people you didn't get it for 11 years?" And I said, because it's important
That's
for people
very
to
important.
know.
Yeah.
Because people think, oh, well, she woke up and now she's doing all these live shows. No, guys, I got rejected 11 times, to the point that I think for 2 years I didn't even bother.
Sure.
I didn't even bother.
Sure.
And then someone was like, "Have you ever submitted?" I was like,
fine.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Come on, please,
Yeah.
please, please. And then I didn't get it again. I was like, no, guys,
not for
please
me.
don't phone me. Yeah. So I'm so connected to that. And I want to start off by the part of, the overnight success being a 10 years thing. And what that has looked like for you. Because we know it intellectually, but living it sucks.
Living it
It
is
sucks.
something else. And I'm so glad you brought up the house thing. Sometimes you forget, and I think it's such an important reference to your question. When we eventually got our home, I was at that point where he said, I was like, I'm not applying anymore.
Yes, I'm done.
Yeah, like I'm done. So we had applied.
Wait, so let's give context quickly to all the
Okay.
listeners. So
Okay.
you and hubby work in an industry that is all over the place.
Yes, entertainment.
Yes,
media.
entertainment.
Yeah.
We don't have pay slips.
Yes.
We don't have the traditional things that banks want to see from us.
Yes.
Unless you have a phenomenal credit track and.
Yeah, but you only do that later. Like you
Yes,
figure
do
that
it-
out later.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now when you are feeling like, but last month I got 6 figures, or it doesn't make sense that the bank
Yeah,
said,
they're like,
nah.
what is
so,
this?
Yes, so
Yeah.
that's the context of the type of life you live
Yeah.
and why it can be difficult to to get the kind of credit that you need.
Correct. So it was that situation where, I mean, you understand entertainment, like the highs are high, the lows are low.
Girl.
But we were ready to purchase a home, and we had 2 kids, and I didn't want to rent anymore. Like kept feeling like, no man, it's such a waste. And so we just kept going to view houses, and we would pray. Like when I tell you, we would pray, we would fast, we would all the things, and we would just get rejected and rejected and rejected until eventually I said to my husband, you know what, it's fine. I think I'm content. Let's find ourselves a nice, comfortable rental, take care of it and treat it like it's our own home. And we did
We'll
that.
drill holes.
Yes, and we'll
put
fix
up
it afterwards,
pictures.
or we'll
Yes.
lose our deposit. Literally,
Yes.
that's what we did. And we found an amazing rental. And we stayed there. And then my husband, but I kept my Pinterest vision board, and I had this house, which actually looks exactly like how my
I mean,
house
that's
looks.
the crazy thing.
Yeah, it actually looks exactly how my house looks. And I just had it there, and my husband knew about it. And then he just never stopped looking. And then he found this house, and he said, I think we should go view it. And I'm like, it's double the amount of what we got rejected for. What do you even mean?
Yeah.
And he just kept insisting. And I literally went to go view the house to get him off my back. I
Yes.
promise you, I went to go view it because this guy, like, I need to get him off my back, and went to view the house. And I remember went with our daughter, and she got in the house like, oh, mommy, our home. And Brendan was like, this is a sign. I'm like, it's not a sign. It's fine. I'm happy. I'm content,
Yeah.
you know. And you know, not so long, we got accepted, and it didn't take that much effort. And I'm telling this from one side is that sometimes we put so much pressure on our dreams, and we suffocate them. And I think that's what I was doing. Like, I had idolized the idea of having a house, and I think our dreams suffocate. But as soon as I surrendered a specific idea, it's as if the world opens up, and God says, okay, now that this thing is no longer an idol in your life, I think you're ready for it. And it was so seamless and easy. So there's 2 parts about it. There's the don't give up part, but there's the also don't suffocate your dream part.
And I love that you're saying that, because the whole thing is a journey.
Yeah.
And it still is, because, I mean, we're doing a home ownership journey at the moment as a masterclass. And I love that we reiterate the part that it is a journey. And the fact that it's a 20-year marriage, right? So what lessons are you taking from being a married woman to having been married to the bank?
Ooh, what lessons am I taking from being a married woman to being married to the bank?
Yes, because now
Sure.
interest rates go up,
Yeah.
and then maybe you want to extend. In the case of Brendan, he's, converted a space into a studio.
Yeah.
You then had your office, and then, what are the lessons you take? Because I really believe all commitments
Yeah.
require something that is beyond and bigger than oneself.
I think the most important one, and I take this everywhere, is, and I'm going to say it this way, and then I'm going to unpack it, show up excellently no matter where. Treat whatever you've been given, whatever you have, with so much care, with so much excellence, and as if it's the last. And I think we have a way as human beings, as soon as you get something, you forget, like the gratitude goes
Like
out
a
the window.
toddler.
We're like a toddler, and then you want the next thing. But I think that's the first thing for me, my marriage to my husband, my marriage to the bank, just commitment to the journey is treated with excellence every single day, right? That's the first one. And the second one, seasons change. That's good news and bad news. The good thing is that there's going to be a good season if you're in a bad one. And the bad news is that if you're in a good season, there's going to be a bad one coming. But what's important is that we should embrace all seasons. I was looking at my garden during the winter. It was so dry. But I insist that, no, we have to keep watering. And you're watering and watering, but you're not seeing anything. But as soon as spring comes, all of a sudden there's blooms everywhere, and it feels like it happened overnight, but it didn't. It was being watered and it was being nurtured during a dry season, and that's why now it's flourishing. So now we look at the neighbors. Now you can see which neighbors were doing the work when it was a
Girl,
bad season.
I'm that neighbor. My gardener was like, he called me outside. He's like, come see.
Come see what's
He said-
happening.
and all he said was, look down the road there.
Yeah.
up the road there.
Yeah.
Do you see what I see? I
Yeah.
said, I see it. Now when I drive home, I'm like, can you see which is the greenest
Exactly.
grass?
So it's that. I think it's understanding. It really is understanding seasons, and even in not so good seasons, still putting in the work and appreciation. And then this I'm trying to stay within the metaphor, but also I'm like trying to make it real. But I think understand your own journey. Don't look at your neighbors. You don't know how they got what they got. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know the sacrifices they're making. You don't know the conversations they're having. So don't covet your neighbors.
Or even you don't know the parts of themselves they were willing to compromise, the parts of their souls they were willing to sell
Exactly.
to have the things that they have.
Exactly.
And sometimes if you knew,
you would
have
be like,
a-
no,
yes,
thank you.
Yes.
I actually listened to such a beautiful conversation this morning where the guy, just forgot his name, he was saying social media is like junk food for your body. It's like when you're hungry, you think, oh no, let me just have this burger, it will fill me up. But
Yeah.
it's the calories without the nutrients.
Yes.
And so you go and so that's what social media is for our social lives. Like you look there and you think, no, I'm gonna feel connected to other people, but it's like you're just consuming the calories that have no nutrients for you. So you're literally just depleting yourself by constantly going. And he said, when you go on one platform is basically all about where people go on to be negative. One platform, people go on to compare each other. And we know which platforms I'm talking about. So I think it's just so important to be mindful of those things and just not look over your neighbor.
And I love what you said about the seasons, because when I was younger, and this has been my motto for, since probably primary school, I used to think this too shall pass was something for hard seasons, just to comfort you that don't worry, But then I realized actually that applies to good times as well,
Yeah.
because it forces you to be grateful and to be
grateful.
present.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that. So when you speak about the seasons, people can look at Mpoomy and say, oh my gosh, Forbes and this, and she just did this,
Listen.
and she got a book. But they might not know, and I've seen it with people, particularly in our industry,
Yeah.
having their seasons. I'm talking Hollywood, I'm talking having their seasons, but behind the scenes, they are absolutely suffering. They are struggling, maybe with loss, maybe with grief, maybe their relationship or marriage is in trouble. So you just never know.
What's happening? Yeah.
You never know. And the part about seasons is the part that should keep you hopeful to get up another day. Like the fact that the sun was out so beautifully, and I have not seen it for a few days because
Yeah.
I've been living in the studio. And I'm those people that suffer that seasonal what disorder. Like if
Depression,
it's
seasonal depression.
it's got a specific name that the acronym is SAD. But I'm those people when it's gray, it like I struggle.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to work. I need to be in bed. Today the sun was, I'm like, we're wearing a dress.
This is good.
We're
Let's
putting
go out there.
You see, even
Yeah.
with youth, the yellow, right? So it's all about the seasons, and I absolutely love that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, let's find out about Mpoomy and her childhood. 23 minutes after 2 o'clock, the upside of failure. We're with Mpoomy Ledwaba, who is a digital entrepreneur, among other things. 011-883-0702, the WhatsApp line, 072-702-1702. Mpoomy, you have reached a place in your life where I think you're quite real about the fact that it's a journey, and much as you're sitting in an inspo motivation space,
Yeah.
real life is not always like that. And I sometimes think that people may not know that you may not have always been like that.
Yeah.
What was it like when you were a child in terms of, critical things on how you viewed the world that shaped your experiences as a child? And what were the voices in your head saying based on the environment you had at home?
Sure. We actually had our book launch yesterday, and I had my parents sitting.
I
in
know,
the front.
and I'm sorry I couldn't come.
It's
I was
okay.
dying.
I had my parents sitting in the front row, and I said, I've never done anything where my parents aren't sitting in the front row. Every single thing, no matter how big, no matter how small, I knew that my parents would show up. And if one couldn't, the other was there.
Yes.
And as a result, I was a confident child. So for me, you couldn't tell me anything. Like, I already know I was so affirmed at home. My parents really, really affirmed me. I am a firstborn sorta with my mom. So there's also the responsibility aspect where, as a firstborn, you immediately become responsible. In fact, I write in the book that I feel like I stopped being a child at the age of 10. And that has so much duality in that my childhood was still beautiful. My parents were still affirming. My home was still loving. But then the attention had shifted from me. And there's now this little girl and this boy, and I have to kind of get it together. So those two aspects. Yeah.
And
So
it starts with you're going to be a big sister.
you're going to be a big sister. And I don't even think that conversation was had. And that's why there was a bit of resentment with my little sister, because it's 1 minute I'm her, I'm the girl in the family, the first grandchild, all of this, all the attention. And the next thing, there's this one that everyone's fussing over. And as a child, I don't think parents then made an effort to introduce the first one and say, hey, look, things are going to change. We're bringing another sibling. So that for me made me an overachiever to compensate, to make sure that, hey, see me, see me, see me. So
look what I can do.
Look what I can do.
Yeah, she's cute, but look, hey.
But look at me. And that in its sense it's a trauma response, but more on the positive side, where you look at a lot of overachievers and you look at their childhood. A lot of it is what I was never seen. I was only seen and celebrated when I did something good.
Yes.
And so now that informed how I do things. It's like I constantly feel the need to achieve until I woke up when I turned 30. I'm like, girl, you don't. Like, you are actually loved, and you have to start seeing that. Like, you don't have to overachieve anymore. But then also there's that confidence thing of whatever I put my hands on, I know it's going to work out because mom and dad believed in me. And that's why I try so many things. So, yeah, those are the two main things I can almost point out to. But I had a very beautiful, loving home and upbringing.
You are reminding me of a video that I saw the other day. I can't for the life of me recall the creator on TikTok. But she was just sharing what is the difference between the people who just have this confidence and the people who don't and are insecure and act from a place of insecurity. And she was saying, after spending the weekend with her boyfriend's family, she got it. And what she noticed is that they were in the car and the brother, her boyfriend started playing a song.
Yeah.
And the mom's in the car and she's like, oh my gosh, you have such great taste in music.
Yeah.
This is such a great song.
Yeah.
And then the girlfriend was sitting at the back going, babe, I love your song, da 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 da. And then the mom said, this is what I like about you. You're supportive. You're this, and that's how they naturally speak.
Sure, just
the whole
affirming,
weekend,
yeah.
affirming off of anything and everything.
Yeah.
And it just got me thinking, because again, it ties back to being seen only when you do something well. And maybe for some, being the firstborns, you're only seen when you're, being a breadwinner or when you are, there's your thigh. Oh my God, thigh, there it is,
That's it.
and then others don't get seen. So I was thinking about how I need to naturally do that as a mother.
Yeah.
Where now the focus is on the effort and the character as opposed to the achievement.
The achievement, yeah.
How are you doing it? How are you taking what you grew up with and now the things you're learning and implementing it at home?
Yeah, that's such a good question. We've had to be very intentional, and I'm reading a book called The 5 Love Languages for Children, right? And the author says that the basis of everything for children is love. Yes, there's discipline and all of that, but you cannot discipline if your child's love cup is empty. And so for me, and in fact for us, our first priority is that how do we love our children the way that they receive love? So for example, my son, he is a
Cuddles?
physical touch, cuddles.
Girl,
yes,
boys are.
I love it for me. I love it for us boy moms. Like, he's just like in the middle of something. Yesterday I was wearing a white suit, and before I leave, he's like, "Mommy, cuddles," and I'm like, "Oh, you're a little dirty, my boy, but okay." And then with my daughter, it's quality time and words of affirmation, and so understanding that and giving them that first is priority. Then afterwards, it's making sure I understand, like, my daughter is a firstborn. So for me, it's important not to just see her or affirm her when she's doing great, but even when she's not, saying, "Oh, you have such a lovely smile, baby. I love how kind you are. You're so good with your brother." But also, there's the over affirming, because we can be the generation that's doing too much, what we lack, which is not good too.
Yes, yes. So it's weird though, because these little people are so what's the word? They mirror us.
Yeah.
They're so wise.
Yeah.
And my son yesterday, I'm always like, I need to film this. I just had a really long week, and he just said to me, "Mommy, you're a good mommy."
Man.
I said, "Am I, baby?"
Oh man.
He said, "Yes, and you're so beautiful." I wanted to cry.
Yeah.
I wanted to cry.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that it is a two-way street, but now that
really
part of
is.
me is like, oh my gosh, now he thinks he has to tell me I'm beautiful. Oh my gosh.
But you
he's
know
carrying
what?
the world on his shoulders at 3.
You know what? I think our children are emotionally intelligent more than we recognize.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna keep referring to yesterday, because there were so many questions and
Yes.
nuggets, and I said it's so important to allow ourselves to be a mess in front of our children, because that teaches them that when they're older, they can be vulnerable. They can, in fact, even as kids, they're able to say, "Mommy, I can't do it." Whereas if you're constantly strong, constantly ticking the boxes,
They don't know
they
they're
don't have
allowed.
the space. Yeah, they don't know if they're allowed to be a mess, to be weak. So even in that, when my kid comes to me and say, "Mommy, you're amazing," I always say, "I appreciate that. Mommy really, really needed that."
I had a think the one day, and I wonder what your experience was, particularly in high school, particularly in school and interacting with other people. Because now there is a new, I don't want to call it a new trend or a culture,
Yeah.
but where people will, who may have known other people from back in the day will now speak about how they are now, and it's not the same person. And I've also had moments where I was chatting to my team where I was like, "Oh, I had a girl who bullied me in school. However, like we are fine. We're in the same industry." And they're like, "But how? Why don't you dislike them?" Like, because we were children at the time. So I wanted to know what you think about that, and if you think that people should announce anything to do with changing or being a different person. And I know this is a big conversation that happens online, but particularly for us as women,
Yeah.
where we are held to a much higher a standard. And in the case of a person who's openly Christian,
Yeah.
you'll be held to an even higher standard.
Sure. I don't believe in cancel culture, and maybe this doesn't work for everyone, but I just really believe in redemption. I don't believe in cancel culture, and I always try and think of social media and reverse it to real life. In real life, will you come in here and walk in and be like, "Hi, I used to be a bully. I've changed now. This is why." And no. So
Yes.
why do we expect people to make announcements? What change is the only thing that is constant. So I think it's a bit of an ugly culture. It's like there's even gatekeeping Christianity now, where people say no. Influencers now, they just all want to be Christian. It's like from a Christian perspective, that's the goal.
Wait, what does that even mean?
What does it-
that influencers now want to be
Want to
Christian?
be Christians? Yeah.
Is it not that sometimes people were Christian all along, but they just got a platform to speak about it or whatever?
Or they just grew and they got more comfortable in their faith, or they've got different convictions. Things change. Sometimes you're Christian because you went to church and that was enough, but it wasn't a part of your life. But if you become serious about your faith, it's like your career. If your career becomes very important, that's what you talk about. If your faith becomes important, that's what you talk about. But people are allowed to change relationships, they're allowed to change jobs, but God forbid if you want to change who you are or want to be a better person. So I don't think cancel culture is fair, and I don't think we should oppose it on anyone. I think we need a little more mercy, a little more grace, and the standard that we've put up, nobody can attain it. It's literally impossible. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents about it. We don't have to announce our change. We can just be better, and that should be enough.
So what has been a personal experience where maybe you feel that you've been held to a standard that is just impossible to hold
Yeah.
or should not even exist?
Yeah.
I mean, being on radio every day, there'll always be someone who's shocked by something I say, which I'm very open
Yeah.
and transparent. So if they know me in one way and then they're like, did you just swear? Like somebody
You're
the
like, "How
other
dare
day
you."
was shocked that I swore on Twitter. I'm like, yes, I
Yeah.
have a foul mouth sometimes.
Yeah.
And yes, I do it in front of my parents. I know it's not disrespectful because our parents allow us to be ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am so disappointed. Or how can you laugh like that? Why don't you laugh like a lady? Like there's so many standards. So what has your experience been when it comes to that?
Sure. Yo, where do I even start? I think with me particularly, because I'm glad that we started by explaining my childhood, that I've always been confident, and with my confidence has come boundaries. So I'm able to say no, or I'm able to say yes. So I'm able to say this is what I want and actually go for it. And so what I found is that when I became loud about this, these are my dreams, this is what I'm going to do no matter what, somehow it offends other people and they put you in a certain light. It's like, how dare you go after your dreams? How dare you say no? How dare you have boundaries? How dare you not allow people to walk all over you? And then I got labeled a mean girl. And so I started sitting with this mean girl thing, and I tried to really understand it. It was okay, what does it mean? And then I started following the trend of who the people are who are labeled mean girls like me. And I'm like, but these are the girls who are going after their dreams. These are the girls with boundaries. These are the girls who've got strong characters. These are the girls who are confident to stand up for themselves. And if that's what it is, then I think I'm okay with that. And that's what happened when I turned 30. It was that acceptance of I'm allowed about who I am. I'm confident, but I'm also confident about changing. Like I am not afraid to change. I'm not afraid to leave a door that's no longer serving me. And somehow in society that can be a problem, and you can be labeled otherwise. But I think with like many things, when you accept you, what other people say, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's only when we haven't accepted who we are. That's why I had to sit and dig deep. But once I accepted, I'm like, no, actually, I'm okay. I've done my SWOT analysis. I know what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are. So it's okay.
In terms of, especially with what you're saying of being okay with yourself.
Yeah.
At one point, you dropped out of varsity.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
Oh, when I dropped, so I knew that accounting wasn't really my thing. So the reason I got into accounting, now that I go back, is that in grade 8 or 10, we did a test, and I had studied really hard. I had really smart friends, and everyone got like 80%, and I was confident. Like I left the room feeling confident. And then I got 40%, 43%, and she said it out loud. She literally said, Amanda, 43%. And I was so embarrassed. I actually cried immediately, and I ran out crying. And I think in my subconscious, I put it there that I will do whatever it takes to prove to this woman that I'm not stupid. And I went on to get a distinction in accounting throughout high school. And then I studied accounting, and I did well. But then I realized when I was in it, I got a job at a really good bank, and I started working there while studying. And I realized, this is not the
for
life I chose.
me.
I didn't choose this. Like, it just happened. And
the teacher was not at that bank going, well done, my girl.
she wasn't there. She had moved on with her life. I don't even think she remembers ever offending me to the point of basing my whole life on proving to her.
Yes.
And in the moment, I'm not saying that's what I was doing, but
Yeah.
upon reflection, I recognize where it started from. And so when I dropped out throughout varsity, I had been saying to my best friend, who was really in love with accounting, that, girl, I just don't get it. I don't see it. And she was obsessed, and she loved it. And I admired her passion for what she did, but I couldn't connect. And eventually, one day, I just left the room, and I really felt like God had kicked me out of that space, like he had something else for me. But it's very hard to explain it in the moment that, no, I felt like God is the reason I left this. Like, it's like, okay, are you making excuses? Are you a failure?
But it's
or
something
what?
you knew,
But I knew.
but couldn't articulate.
But I couldn't articulate.
Yeah.
But I knew deep down, and even now I know deep down that that moment was supposed to happen.
Look, shout out to accountants. I say all the time to the listeners, my brother's a CA. His wife is a CA, my dad's an accountant,
Jeez.
and I'm that random creative that's just there
Like,
on
what
the
happened to Pumenjan?
We continue with Mpoomy Ledwaba on the upside of failure.
Step forward.
9 minutes to 3 o'clock, the upside of failure. And we are with Mpoomy Ledwaba today. Your calls on 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. We've got your voice notes that have been coming through for Mpoomy.
Good afternoon, 702, the team and all the listeners. Trust you guys are blessed this afternoon. So, Mpoomy, thank you for this interview. What I've learned this afternoon is that life, success is a process of maturity to receive what you desire or what you want. It is a process, and that process could be a month, a week, a year, and years ahead. Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for being real. Be blessed. Be blessed indeed.
Hi, Ridebogile. Hi, you speaking to Temba here. Oh my goodness. Listening to the lady in the studio right now saying that she had to surrender, so that the universe or God can then finally respond to the dream and not suffocate our dreams. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How many times have I in my life made my dreams an idol? And they seem not to get to fruition. But until I surrender, then things start happening. But I couldn't put words to that whole process, and I think she did justice just to that. So yes, number one, do not suffocate the dream. Number two, surrender. Thank you so much, Miss Ledwaba.
Oh, how does that make you feel? Hold on, let's firstly get your mic on. Let's make sure everybody in studio is awake.
There we go.
There we go.
Firstly, it's so refreshing to hear from male voices, men. Normally,
Yes.
my audience is mostly women. So,
Yes.
firstly, it's refreshing. And I realized something. We all the same as human beings. We're all having the same experience. It's just we articulate it differently. It might not look the same in the physical sense, but in a spiritual sense or in a bigger world, we're all going through the same thing. So the whole surrender thing, I think we can all relate to it. And when I found words to it, it's given me so much peace when it comes to anything that I desire. It's like, yes, I desire it, but even if I get it, I'll be okay. And when if I don't get it, I'll be okay. If I get it, I'll be happy. But Nje, to be a person who's just content, and like you said, grateful and in the present mind, that's all it means. That's what surrender is. It's just to be content, grateful, and be present.
As an, I'm going to say in inverted commas, overachiever, how did you actually get into starting to write the book? Because I know sometimes a person, and I can totally relate to this, you want certain things to have happened or aligned before you do that one project. So what was the thing that got you over the line?
Structure. Structure. I'm very, very structured. Sometimes to my own detriment, but structure really helped me in that, and I've shared this quite a number of times, that I, for like about a year or so, every day, between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., I would write. So I would wake up at around 3:45, whether it's winter, summer, whatever's happening in my life, and I would write from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. And my goal was to write 1,000 words. And sometimes I'd get 2,000, sometimes I'd get 500, but I knew that I was pushing towards that goal, and that helped me to get out of the trying to quickly get to the goal. But I was like in it every day. Today is all that matters. This morning, if I can just get this, I'll get to the finish line. So it kind of helped me remove the finish line, remove the perfectionism, try not edit stuff out or in, or try make it sound a certain way. I was just in it. In this day, this is all I could do.
How has achieving certain goals that you've been like dreaming of actually been a disappointment?
You're speaking about Forbes, nah?
And not just Forbes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spoken about it before, where there's a high with something, and then you have the phone calls for like a day or two.
Yeah.
and then afterwards the feeling is like gone, and
Meh.
you're sitting with a trophy in the house, and you're like, you know,
Yeah.
so
You
like
missed out on the whole process because you were just in a
Yeah.
hurry to have the trophy, and
Yeah.
that really sucks. And that was Forbes for me.
Also, the what's next though, like
the
what's the next
next,
thing,
yeah.
right? So you don't know how to enjoy this moment because you're like, oh no, what now?
like I need, like, how do I top
Yes,
it? You know.
yes.
So and I'll quickly say this with Forbes. So I had been nominated, and I was so excited. So Forbes was one of those things, those goals for me that would prove that I'm not a
As
failure.
in Forbes 30 under
Forbes
30.
30 under
yes.
30. It was that goal that would prove that, no, I'm not a failure. I'm smart. I can do this. I'm running a serious business. I got nominated, and I thought, woo, it's my moment. God is
Yes.
going to vindicate me, you know. And then, long story short, I went to almost the finish line, and then I didn't make it. And I was broken. I'm telling you, cried the whole weekend, and I felt
For
like yes, I was
real?
so broken because I had idolized it so much.
Yeah.
It was the moment I thought would prove that I'm not a failure. Like, you
Also,
know,
I
I'm not
am
a
enough.
quitter. I'm enough.
Yeah.
Yes. But after that, after releasing that, I felt so much peace. It's as if it started coming together to me that, no, man, just because you didn't make it on the list, look at how far you've come, considering where you come from. And then the next year I got nominated again, and then I got in. But it was like, oh, I celebrated, but it was like,
It wasn't what you
it
thought.
wasn't what I
Yeah.
thought. It didn't validate who I am.
In 10 seconds, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about failure?
The biggest lesson I've learned about failure is that it's necessary. That's how character is built.
Mpoomy Ledwaba, love your work. Love to the babies and to hubby. And thank you so much for coming through.
Thank
The book is called
you.
How Did We Get Here? Get it at all awesome bookstores. It is a journey that you get to go on with the author.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.